Hello, good morning. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar. I'm Michael Conway of Renaissance, and the webinar today is called Can Your Infrastructure Handle AI? And for some reason, my camera doesn't seem to be coming up on my screen, so apologies for that. Possibly you're all happy not to see me at this time of the morning anyway. But the webinar is called Can Your Infrastructure Handle AI? And the backup ransomware and storage questions to answer first. And I'm delighted that you can all attend today and really appreciate your time. I'm joined by Richard Howson from ImpossibleCloud, one of our partners, value partners. Um, and what I'd like to do is, if I can pass on, really just give you a little bit of housekeeping in relation to the event today. Um, the event, the most important thing from our perspective is that you get what you want out of the event, and that is key. So that we want you guys all as attendees to get the learnings and the information and the knowledge that you want. All attendees are muted for the session, but you will be unmuted for Q&A. But it is being recorded also for a number of people who are unable to attend. So you will get this also later, so you can share this internally or with colleagues or whatever way you wish. So in terms of the interaction and making sure that you get the benefits for yourself, please enter any questions into chat or send them directly to myself. We'll take the Q&A at the end, but we want to make this as interactive as possible in that you get the answers to the questions that you have. So any questions you have, think of them, stick them into chat or into Q&A, send them to myself, and we'll get through them with Richard afterwards. And that way you will get the most relevant answers to the questions in your mind. So without further ado, I'll go quiet. I'll pass you on to Richard. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael. Much appreciated, and welcome all. As Michael said, thank you very much for your time. It's fantastic to have you here today, and we look forward to discussing with you around AI infrastructure. So my name is Richard, as Michael's alluded to, and I am the Channel and Distribution Manager for ImpossibleCloud in the UK and Ireland. Today's webinar, we're going to look at understanding if your infrastructure can handle AI. And in doing so, we're going to identify the key AI infrastructure blind spots and discuss what you need to look out for. So the reason that we are identifying these blind spots is because you may or may not be aware of them. And they're often, we find, overlooked in the decision-making process when moving into AI. Our aim with this webinar is to help companies such as yourselves in your AI journey. And we want to act as purely as an advisor and highlight these blind spots now before they create you a problem further down the line. Infrastructure is the core foundation that will facilitate your AI projects and your AI roadmap moving forward. I find that companies often focus a huge amount of time when deciding on their LLM without properly considering the infrastructure that actually supports their AI technology. Whereas in truth, the LLM side of things is fairly easy to change and fairly easy to move with in comparison to the foundations of the infrastructure. As the slide says here, the most dangerous blind spot is the one that looks perfectly obvious. And this is because these often get overlooked during planning, and companies presume that their AI infrastructure is already sufficient when this usually isn't the case. It's usually the basic infrastructure and foundations that are not correct at the start, and this will have some really fairly profound impacts upon the success of your AI project moving forward. So we're going to start with a quick poll to get things going, if we may. This will be put up on the screen by Anastasia. I believe that you should all be able to see that now. So we'd like to get an understanding of what role does storage play in your current AI strategy? So option 1, strategic, 2, evolving, 3, pragmatic, and 4, not yet addressed. You've got a brief summary of each of those to the side. So we'll give a couple of minutes, minute or so, just to get some feedback on those. And I'm going to put it out there and suggest that we're going to see more options from 3 and 4, as we're currently seeing that storage is often overlooked and a bit of an afterthought when we're looking at AI projects. So pause that in there. Fantastic. Thank you very much. And there we go. And we can actually share those results. So as you can see, the majority there, 75%, had not yet addressed, and storage has hardly been considered so far. So that's one of the reasons that we're actually hosting this webinar today. Okay, so thank you for that. Moving on. Move that. Okay, so if you want to run an AI business models that go further from your staff just using the likes of ChatGPT, you need sufficient storage. This is the foundation of your AI infrastructure, and it should be seen as your AI facilitator. If you don't get this right at the start, then you're going to experience issues and further costs down the line, and that sequence isn't often one that's very nice. So let's look at the 5 main infrastructure blind spots, and these are the key points that we're looking to address when choosing and setting up your AI infrastructure. So firstly, we've got speed. We need to ensure that you have the speed to work efficiently. Are your GPUs gaining access to data quick enough, for example? Secondly is cost. Basically, can you afford it? Have you factored in all of the costs, and are you clear on the cost expectations as you grow? The real aspect around this is the transparency and understanding of your costs, and we'll move on to these in more detail. Sovereignty. Sovereignty has this been addressed, and are you remaining compliant within your industry? And are you in control of your data, or do third parties have access to your data when moving to an AI model? Number 4, resilience. Are you properly protected against malicious threats? And finally, scale. Have you planned for capacity to allow and facilitate the growth that you've got expected? So we're going to move into these in a bit more detail. So blind spot number 1, speed. Your GPUs are fast, your data pipeline might not be. So what I have seen on a number of instances over the last 6 months is that companies are fighting for the fastest and latest and highest performing GPUs, but they're still experiencing bottlenecks in speed. Now, these bottlenecks aren't usually on the compute side of things. It's usually down to the access that the GPUs have to the data source. And this comes down to a multitude of things, but one of which being the location of the GPU and the storage and what connection you have between them. If the connection and the access to the data is slow, then this will create a bottleneck in speeds. And regardless of how quick your GPU is, then that will always be limited by the access to the data. So 3 main aspects we need to consider here. Firstly, our throughput. GPU is going to be quicker to the data that is being accessed, and they need a continuous and uninterrupted data stream for them to work efficiently. For this, you can look to introduce direct connections with sufficient bandwidth and reliability. And it's also worth considering the location of your data storage in comparison to the compute and GPU services as well, because you want to minimize that distance. Secondly is latency. When we talk in milliseconds, this is often overlooked, but the milliseconds add up really quickly to a meaningful impact when across millions of training steps that are seen with LLMs. So although milliseconds might sound very insignificant, when multiplied together, it actually has a fairly significant impact upon the performance of your AI platform. Thirdly, and finally here, is compatibility. Compatibility and flexibility are key. So when choosing your platform, we would suggest you choose a fully S3 platform for your storage that allows you to work with any GPU or compute services. By opting for this fully S3 platform, it gives you full control over your decisions as opposed to kind of falling into a silent lock-in with a provider where you're fixed to that single provider. Your AI journey might look very different in 5 years' time. So you want to ensure that you've got the correct infrastructure in place to allow you to be really agile and adopt different paths or platforms further down the line if you wish. Again, this all goes down to correctly choosing and identifying the basic foundations at the start of your program. Blind spot number 2, costs. So you budget for compute, but your data transfer drives the bill. Everyone I speak to is considering the capex costs, but they fail to fully consider the ongoing opex costs that are actually associated with the running of the AI platform. So people only see the sticker price. You need to actually go deeper to understand your ongoing costs. There are often a number of charges, usually hidden behind a headline terabyte cost, and the majority of sort of service providers tend to hide these costs in the small print. When choosing a provider, you need to work out budgets and you need to consider the following. Firstly is API call charges. So when your API operations reads, writes, deletes, and lists, you will have API call charges, and many providers charge per API call charge. The second is egress and egress fees. This is driven by the data transfer, and many cloud providers again charge egress fees, which means there's a cost every single time you access your data via the GPUs. Thirdly is minimum retention periods for data. It's really important that you are able to access and only be charged for the amount of time that you're actually storing that data for. And finally is the retentions and copies. The growth of data on a standard model is huge anyway, but within an AI environment, data volumes grow fairly significantly over a short period of time, and that's caused by multiple versions, copies, and intermediate states. So as your data is increasing, you will naturally have additional costs for that volume of data. Egress fees are probably the most important one to consider here with AI use cases. LLMs are all about the movement of data, and this can often be a hidden cost. So what I would advise is picking a storage provider where you've got a very clear and transparent understanding of costs, and with easy access to your data where you're not going to get penalized for accessing it. The cost can quite quickly limit your functionality of the product if not thought out correctly early on. So actually, only being able to afford to run your platform for 50% of the time is going to have a big bearing on the success of that platform. So, blind spot number 3. Sovereignty doesn't end at the model, it starts with the data. Very simply, sovereignty equals control. This is your data and you need to stay in control of it. And we don't believe that you should ever be charged for accessing or moving your data. So we're going to read from the slide here because I think it's really relevant. True AI sovereignty isn't decided at the model level. It's decided by who controls your data, logs, and outputs. So there are 3 main aspects that you need to address when looking at sovereignty. Firstly, we've got key ownership. You need to own your own encryption keys. This ensures that you retain full control over the access of your data, because whoever controls the keys controls the access to the data. Secondly is transparent data flows. Ensure that you know which companies your data is being transacted by. This is really important because many cloud providers use sub-providers to facilitate their model. And you need to know who these are and what data rights they have. Just to use ImpossibleCloud as an example, okay, we own and operate our own platform and we don't use any sub-providers. Therefore, we can actually guarantee data paths and we can guarantee that all data is retained and geofenced within region. I'm not saying that from a sales point of view, but it's to give an example of someone that owns and operates their own. And I would recommend that would be a route that you go down with whichever provider you choose. Thirdly is legal control. Again, incredibly important. You need to retain legal compliance within your region. And if you choose a European provider, then you are acting and operating under the EU laws and governance. Really simple. If you choose a US company, then you are subject to additional set of laws in the US laws. An example of this is the US Data Act. So if you work with a US company, and they store your data, then the US Gov and US authorities have access to your data at any time for any reason that they wish. Now, that then suddenly becomes non-sovereign with your platform because you have multiple parties being able to access and gain access to your data at any time. It's quite interesting to know as well, they don't actually have to communicate when they're accessing the data or when they have access to data. And in my opinion, there should be a tendency to choose a provider that operates in the same governance structure that you're in. So as an Irish company, I would tend to use a European provider. Being EU sovereign now also provides a real true differentiator in an area that's seen significant growth. One sort of case study example from this month was Airbus, the European aerospace manufacturer. They've actually migrated all sensitive workloads away from AWS to a French cloud provider. As they said, in their words, they needed to guarantee the data remained in Europe and under European control at all times. Really interesting. If a company like Airbus are migrating away from hyperscalers to European platforms, it makes people sit up and make notice. Moving on to blind spot number 4. Resilience. So encryption is visible, the manipulation often isn't. So to remain resilient, you need to adopt a platform that is able to stay ahead of the ever-changing threats and have structures in place to minimize the impact of any such event or malicious actions. So disaster recovery brings data back. Resilience tells you which versions to trust. I think this is really well put. This is really important because we need to keep in mind as we see ransomware attacks evolving into more advanced sort of data manipulation attacks. And what that means is that the data is, even if you pay a ransom, that data integrity is not assured. And you need to be verifying that again before restoring. So even if you get your data back, you can't trust or guarantee that that data hasn't been manipulated in some way, which is an incredible frustration and is incredibly time consuming to go through everything. So 4 main aspects here, which you can see on the slide. You've got manipulation. So modern attacks no longer encrypt data, they alter it silently, as I've mentioned. Data versions. AI is continuously generating new versions of training data, checkpoints, and logs. And in doing so, you need to have a single source of truth of which is your true fallback option. Trust. A backup only helps if you know which state of your data is untampered. So you need to have a single source of truth that you can fall back on. And the final one there is resilience, and it all comes down to this. So this is the most important factor, is that you have a solution with object lock and versioning to ensure you have a fully immutable backup. An immutable backup is one that can't be edited, deleted, or encrypted for a given period of time. And that means that if you do experience an attack, you will have a single source of truth to be able to restore from at any time. Moving on now to the final blind spot, number 5. And this is all around scale. So AI projects rarely fail in the pilot phase. They fail when they scale. When starting off in the pilot phase, existing infrastructure can generally be sufficient, just in small data levels, low speed, etc. And it can be sufficient just while testing. But as soon as you actually scale that up and bring the pilot into a real world scenario, then this is where we start to see issues around the areas that we've already highlighted so far. You need to ensure that you've got the platform that can deal with the complexity, capacity, speed, and security to scale the platform as you grow. So to do that, you need to choose the right partner company to work with, and you need to make sure that your infrastructure is AI ready. Firstly, it's imperative to plan and accommodate for future data growth. Data is growing at a rate of between 25 and 30% per annum for standard SME customers. So what that means is that over a 3-year period, an SME customer would have doubled their data volume. Okay. Now, that's fine in SME world, but when you actually look at AI workloads, this data growth doubles to between 50 and 60% per annum. So if your data is doubling every 18 months or so, this is a significant cost that you're going to have to factor in to any growth expectations. Okay, so please bear that in mind when sort of working out your finances and future growth expectations. In order to reduce complexity and improve the efficiencies, we would advise that your AI infrastructure should be aligned with your existing IT infrastructure. What this ensures is that it's incredibly well integrated, you have simplified as best as possible, and you've already got users that have a certain level of competency and understanding of the AI structures in place. What this does then is it means that you're minimizing the complexity, but you've got really strong architecture to actually support your business growth across all areas, be that AI or everyday use. So we've gone over the 5 key points that we need to address and that we would strongly suggest you look at in more detail. And hopefully you found those fairly interesting and perhaps a bit enlightening. What I would like to do now is do one more poll, if I may. And we'd like to understand where you see the biggest gaps in your AI infrastructure. So I think Anastasia is going to pop that up now. There we go. You should be able to see that. And as before, we've got multiple options. So where do you see your biggest gaps in your AI infrastructure? Is that performance? Is it cost? Is it sovereignty? Is it resilience? Or is it scale? The 5 points that we've gone over today. So if you're able to click on those when you get a moment. Go, just waiting for a couple more. See, it's fairly strong on resilience there at the moment in terms of the protection and recovery of AI data. And we'll give it 30 seconds more just to get those final few in. Cool. Okay, so we'll end that. And we can see that resilience is the overwhelming winner there with 100%, with protection and recovery of AI being the key factor. Thank you very much. So moving on, just to kind of provide a key takeaway. What I would want you to do, and the key takeaway for me really is, before looking at which model you're going to do, think about the foundations and the infrastructure that's going to allow your platform to thrive and succeed and give you the best chances of success. What we're seeing in the market is so much focus going into choosing the correct LLM without enough thought being put into the right infrastructure that will actually facilitate this and efficiently and effectively over the next 5-10 years. So without the correct foundations in place, you are always going to create speed bottlenecks. You're always going to be allowing data to be accessed by third parties, and you're going to face ever increasing costs. Almost at the end now. So this does provide us with an opportunity. Okay, so how can we turn these AI blind spots into a competitive advantage? That's what I want to take out to this. So firstly, rethinking your storage for AI. Storage is no longer a passive infrastructure. Okay, the architecture actually determines how fast, controllable, and resilient your AI actually becomes. Your data layer is part of the AI infrastructure. It's a basic core facility now. It needs to be a core part of your planning process. And AI requires early architectural decisions. So from those, what I would say the next steps are map your data paths. Okay, you need to understand how your data flows and how your data is stored in order to maximize your speeds and remove any potential bottlenecks. By leveraging your storage as best as possible, you're going to minimize latency and maximize your GPU performance and get the best bang for your buck. Cost-wise, it's easy to see and understand your CapEx costs, but it's very important to actually clearly understand your OpEx costs and have a clear understanding of growth expectations so that you can forecast this for the future. People that haven't done this, and we've seen it firsthand, it provides immediate bill shock. And by not doing it, it means that often you're unable to actually afford to run your program effectively. And the final one there, the final sort of next step for you would be sovereignty. Ensure that you are fully compliant and that you retain control of your data. And how you do that is by adopting a fully EU or UK sovereign storage platform. As Michael said, we've gone through quite a lot of information, but the slides and the presentation will be sent out to everyone after today's webinar. Please take a look at them when considering your AI path, and we would be more than happy to jump on a call or discuss things in more detail when the time is right, if you wish to do so. If you are looking for a European cloud provider, then for your AI journey, then try us out. Let's have a conversation. What we're offering is a 30-day free trial. And you can access that by scanning the QR code. We offer a highly performing AI-ready storage platform that is fully UK and EU sovereign, has very clear and transparent pricing, and no hidden costs. In short, we are perfectly suited to an AI use case. The best way to trial something is to get hands-on. So scan here for your 30-day free trial, or reach out to either myself or anyone on the Renaissance team, and we'll be able to organize a further conversation or get you set up with a free trial. Thank you very much for your time once again. It's greatly appreciated, and hopefully you found this really insightful.
Thank you, Richard.
Over to the team.
Thank you very much, Richard. I think there's a couple of things there, and I haven't been able to see myself on the screen, so I don't know if I exist, but now I can see myself much better, so it's great. And those who know me will think, my God, why are you looking at yourself? But anyway, listen, what I'd like to take, there are a number of questions here, and I think there's some really interesting points from our side. It's really interesting there. One of the last slides, you talk about bill shock. We as a Renaissance, obviously operating in Ireland, we come across a lot of organizations, and we've heard that term quite a lot, frankly, you know, and we've actually had one particular end customer of a partner of ours, and it was key. It was an important customer for this partner. They actually put a significant amount of their their project work for the forthcoming year on hold because of bill shock that they encountered. So it's a challenge. But there are a number of questions here. Maybe if I can, and that sort of leads to one of them here, if you like. And I must say, I did like the slide where it says the cost trap isn't isn't the storage price, it's the pricing model. So it's all of the aspects. But a question
Absolutely.
here is: are regress costs really that relevant if the data never leaves the cloud?
Absolutely, 100%. And the reason for that is that an egress is every time you're accessing that data back and forth. Okay. And when you're looking at the AI models, okay, they will have very high egress levels because they're consistently accessing that data, as that data is the pool which the clever stuff is accessing to be able to give the answers back. Okay, so the egress fees, I would say, are the most important factor to consider, along with the API call charges on that side of things, because they will significantly impact how much you're spending going forward. That would be,
Okay.
if anything, I would say that was my key takeaway from today.
Yeah, the cost
Egress
structure.
fees.
Are these this is me asking the question. Are these sort of um, I'm trying to think of a word, obscured costs, for want of a better word, so that they will
Yeah,
suck the lifeblood out of a subscriber. Would that be an unfair question?
not at all,
Okay.
and it's very applicable. So I think I alluded to it slightly in the thing in the presentation, but there's often a headline price for a per terabyte cost, and this is what it's going to be. And then there will be some small print costs for egress, API call charges, retention periods, etc. Okay, and that in day to day may be less significant, but when looking at an AI model and an AI use case, it's amplified exponentially. Okay,
Okay.
so when your platform is gaining and needing immediate access and constant access to that data, okay, and that data transfers back and forth, it's huge in terms of the egress side of things, and it's often swept under the rug or not communicated effectively enough. um, we're not here to talk about Impossible Cloud, but one thing that we do well is provide a very transparent and very easily adoptable pricing model where egress there are no egress costs, no API call charges, no minimum retention period. It's a very simple and transparent model.
Yeah, and I think the obscured cost for or the small print, I think, is a challenge for everybody, I guess.
Yeah.
But so
Well,
let me, sorry, go on, Richard.
the other thing the egress things then lead on to is that silent lock-in. Okay, because if your egress fees build to a point where it becomes unmanageable, okay, then suddenly you're not able to migrate that data away, okay, from the provider, and therefore you're trapped in this model where you're stuck with X provider. Okay, by choosing a company that doesn't have egress fees, it puts you back in control of your data because you can move your data to whichever company you wish based on changes to your working style, and to your sort of roadmap. You're able to easily move that and stay in control of your data.
Okay, so but if you, I guess what you're saying then is if you get locked in, you get locked in, but you also can't use the stuff, use the data effectively either because you're just locked in. So the architecture and getting the architecture right in the first place is key.
Absolutely spot on.
Okay. So another question here, and I must say I did like the heading. Sovereignty is a question of control, not geography. Um, so it's not about the location of the data center or the data itself. It's about the ownership and the control of the company itself, effectively in terms of, let's say, the US, the Cloud Act, etc.
Exactly that. Yeah. So it doesn't matter where it's stored in theory. Okay. It's around who has jurisdiction and who has access to that data. So sovereignty is around control of data. So if you have a fully sovereign platform, it means that you're in full control of your data. Okay. Often it's, naturally that goes with geographic location, okay, of where it's stored, because you're then working within the uh, sort of legal parameters of that region. Okay. But what we're trying to do is ensure that our clients and people we speak to, our partners, actually retain control of that data. So to give you a quick example, even if you're working with a US provider, but you're storing the data in Ireland, people often wrongly, unfortunately, think that that's sovereign. I've got my data down the road in Dublin, I can see the data, etc. If it's with a US provider, it means that you are subject to the US Data Act and US laws, which mean that US Gov and authorities have access to your data at any stage, whenever they want to, wherever that data is stored.
Without telling you necessarily.
Without telling you. They don't have to give you warning. They don't have to tell you that they've accessed it. And there have been over 30,000 accesses this year alone by US Gov.
Does that mean that, well, I'm asking the question here probably for myself. Does that mean that state-based organizations are reluctant to store data in these organizations? I guess you're
Absolutely.
seeing that
Yeah.
with
So
Airbus, I guess, yeah.
Airbus, French government moved everything away from hyperscalers to European providers. And what we're finding now is that you get specialist cloud providers, so SCPs. Okay, so instead of using the monoliths of the hyperscalers, clients and partners now are starting to use more structured sort of providers that are specialists within their industries. Also, what we're finding is that if someone had said previously, I'm storing my data in China or I'm storing my data in Russia, immediately you'd be thinking, crikey, Moses, that's crazy. You wouldn't think of doing it. But in the same sense now, it's US is moving in exactly the same way. And they have to be considered as a China or a Russia, for example, because they are accessing your data.
Okay, well, let me not explore any more geopolitical challenges here, but I guess the awareness is obviously key for our partners who are on this session. But here's another question here, and I'm learning lots of phrases. Isn't object lock primarily a backup feature? I think you mentioned that in terms of immutability of data.
Yeah, absolutely. It's used within backup and recovery. Absolutely. The reason it is so applicable within AI use cases is because AI data is the key. Data is the key for AI. Okay, without data, AI doesn't work, and as such, data is now so valuable to companies and therefore to hackers. Okay, so what you need to do is ensure that you've always got a copy of your data that is up to date and is not able to be targeted, encrypted, or edited by any third party. You are able to do that by having by using object lock and versioning to provide a fully immutable backup.
So it's the integrity of that data is maintained 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, what we're finding is that those attacks now are changing slightly, whereas it was just a ransomware. Here, we've got your data, we pay to get it back. They're now manipulating that data. So even when you get it back, or if you're able to get it back from some part, that data has actually been manipulated. So you can't actually trust the data you're getting back. The only way you can trust it is by having a fully immutable backup that you're in control of.
Okay, and there are a couple of questions here. Maybe they may actually blend into each other, but they're relating to an AI pilot, if you like. Sorry, there's a side question there in terms of the session being recorded. It is actually recorded, and the link will be sent to everybody afterwards. And there are a number of people, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on where they are, they're on holidays and they wanted to attend this event, this webinar, but they will also get the link. So everybody who has requested the link, and it will be made available. But sorry, the question here: how much infrastructure planning is realistically needed for an early AI pilot? And I guess that's linked then to another question. Isn't this topic really only relevant for large scale AI projects? And maybe if you can throw the two of them together to Richard.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you very much for that. So the answer is no to both. Okay. So it's really important, even at small scale, to get the correct foundations and infrastructure in place. Okay. These AI models can grow very quickly. And if you don't have the right basic infrastructure in place, then you're going to be sort of committed to that. It's very hard to change further down the line. It's around investing time at the start to make sure you've got the basic bones in place that you're able to kind of grow your platform with. And no, this should be for any company that is moving away from simply allowing their staff to use ChatGPT and are actually moving down an AI route. This should be for any customer that is adopting an AI model. And again, it's just around having, if you're going to build a house, you need the right foundations. Okay, going back and changing those foundations after you built the house is incredibly difficult. So make sure you've spent time on getting the basic bits in place first. And if you've looked at, if you look back at the 5 points we've made, if you address all of these 5 blind spots, you will be doing very well.
Okay, so it's a question of preparation, planning, structure, etc., etc. I don't have any other questions then at this stage. And I don't see any other open questions. And I think what I would suggest is that we give people maybe some. No, sorry, there is another question. Just pops up. When you're mentioning about the AI, are you suggesting Copilot or other provider? Also wondering if that needed to be adopted, then would that be via API?
So I'm just reading that here. So when you're mentioning about with this, so we're talking around if you're setting up your own AI infrastructure more specifically. Okay, so are you investing in compute and GPU hardware? And if so, you need to make sure you've got the right storage platform in place to hold the data that it's accessing. So that's the main key point. If you're using Copilot and the alike, if you're still providing that data pool or data lake for that Copilot to be able to go into and access to give you the results and information you want. How you store that data is still very important, because the same process is, is my data remaining sovereign? If it's accessing it, am I subject to egress fees, etc.? And in general, you want to make sure that you're in control of your data and that it's stored in an economical way, I guess. So yes, it still relates. I think what we've been speaking about more is the adoption of your own AI infrastructure through compute and GPU.
I guess is the question really, is AI storage actually different from regular cloud storage, or is it just a new label? Maybe it's worth clarifying that.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. With ours, okay, and I can only speak from our perspective, we have a single tier, okay, which is AI ready. Okay, so we are absolutely perfectly suited for an AI use case, but equally that same platform can be used for day-to-day data storage and backups, for example. Okay, the reason that makes us AI ready, okay, is having an extremely quick and reliable platform. So we won't be a bottleneck when your data is being accessed. We have zero egress fees, zero API call charges, and very low price per terabyte cost, which means that you can store large volumes of data, but also have a very clear understanding of what your costs are going to be further down the line, i.e. no egress costs, no API call charges, no retention period on data. So from that perspective, I would say they are the same, okay? You don't need the fastest levels of storage, okay, but you need a storage platform that is going to allow you to be economical but also not provide a bottleneck.
I guess what you're saying is that at the end of the day, people, the requirement and need for AI may well grow in an organization. So if they're not even using it now, it's you need to build a platform for that. Yeah, okay. So there's a question here about Copilot and tenant rights. So I'm going to let you read that one, Richard.
Yeah, thank you. I think with this one, it's probably best it's quite a detailed answer, and it's probably best to do a bit of a deep dive on it to provide a technical answer. Okay. I'd be very happy to take that offline and run with that Srikanth if you would wish to have a quick call at some stage. But basically, what I believe you're saying is that because Copilot sits on your own tenant, it's not different to the Azure tenants. So what I would say is we would be a perfect fit to the likes of a Copilot or Azure, for example.
So
Okay.
I guess maybe if I can, I'm conscious of time and everything else, but maybe if I can suggest that's taken offside and or offside offline, and that we can bring that response back to everybody. But the question really is building out your infrastructure and building out your cloud-based storage infrastructure that's appropriate for yourselves, and build that out up front. Um, can I say, listen, just thank Richard very, very much for this, because I think there's a lot of interesting things there. The cost trap, I must say, I like some of the headlines. The cost trap, sovereignty is, and I think those things are really, really interesting. And we're seeing that in the Irish market, particularly now. I think everybody in the European market is seeing that, quite frankly. Um, but but a really important thing too is, everybody can test this as well for free. So if you want to contact, and there was a QR code, but maybe if you want to pop that up there again, Richard. But if everybody can test this, and if anybody wants to contact the Renaissance team, or indeed the Impossible Cloud team and Richard directly, or contact anybody in Renaissance, we will organize that for you. There's absolutely no difficulty doing that. And as I say, this recording will be made available to everybody. So if we can you're welcome to share it. You're welcome to deep dive it. You're welcome to explore any more questions or queries that you may have with Richard or the Renaissance team. We'll be delighted to push that forward. I think that's your code coming up. So if anybody wants to do that, you can test that free, and I think that might well be a good starting point. But please contact the Renaissance team or any of the Impossible Cloud team, and really appreciate everybody attending today. It's currently nice weather outside. That's not guaranteed to continue for any length of time, but you never know. So thank you very much, and we'll send you on the recordings.